cause a problem. Now let's go to, and I'm moving across this because I want to get to the more important part here, which is single audit. Let me explain to you this. In the past, many, many years ago, you know, all organizations do an audit, are required to have an audit. State regulations, state rules, whatever. The federal government also requires an audit. So what do? You have a state audit done and then you hire somebody to do the federal audit? Well, somebody said, what a terrible waste of money and resources. Why don't we have one audit known as a single audit, which does what? Audit the state's operation as well as any federal monies that they might have received. Again, I'll give you an example. You've just received $500,000 worth of funding for Hurricane Sandy in your town from the federal government, or $600,000. If you're the CFO, you say, uh-oh, sounds like single audit is coming down this way. But there are a couple of questions you have to answer first. The way single audits work is you have to spend at least $500,000 during any 1 year. $500,000 during any 1 year. As they would call it, it has to be at risk. Okay? And what single audit does is, it instead of doing a grant by grant audit, you do an entity-wide audit itself. Okay? How is this different from a GAGAS audit? Okay, so we had the generally accepted auditing standards, then we had the government auditing standards. Now there's a third layer on top, which is the single audit requirement. So there is another layer on top of the GAGAS, more requirements of what needs to be done. So you have these three layers. The first, which corporations follow, the second one, which all governments follow, and then the third one, which is the single audit, where you need to, if you receive $500,000 or more. And as I said, these are and notice it's just not state and local government, it's also what? Not-for-profit organizations, including colleges and hospitals. Could those be non-governmental? Yes, it doesn't matter. Government or non-governmental not-profits, single audit still applies. So this is what happens. In the past, what happened was, if you are if you're the state of New Jersey and you receive millions of dollars of monies from the federal government for program, this program, that program, what they used to do was hire an auditor to audit each program. Terrible waste of money. So instead of doing it as a program on a single program basis, now you have what? A single audit itself. Okay. And this was a single audit which actually came much earlier, 1996. There were some things that were done to expand. The important words here are risk-based approach for audit testing. Those are the important words. Let me give you, and I'll try to make this simple because when you look at this in the book, it seems a little like rocket science. It's not. What does risk-based approach mean? You don't even have to know anything about auditing. You audit the programs which you think carry the greatest risk. Audit the programs which carry the greatest risk. If there were two programs, one was a very large program and one was a small program, and they had the same risk level, which one would you audit first? The large one, right? So what do you want to do? You want to identify high risk, large programs. And you want to identify what? High risk, low amount programs, right? You want to catch all the high risk. That's what this risk-based approach is all about. And then there are rules, and we'll talk about this. What's this A-133? You'll see this all the time. If you ever want to impress a government auditor and you don't know anything about government auditing, just tell them, I'm familiar with A-133. And they'll say, gosh, how did he or she know about this? Because let me explain this to you. GAGAS, which is the governmental auditing standards, they are basically what standards? They have to be specific guidelines. And that's issued by the Office of Management and Budget. And those guidelines, those specific guidelines, are in A-133. So one are the standards, the other are the guidelines. And the guidelines are under A-133. Believe me, there is money to be made in government auditing. You might not think so. Do you know who does a single audit for the state of New Jersey? Yeah. Were you New Jersey?
No.
Okay.
My research does.
Okay. All right. Amount of federal awards. There's an illustration 11.8, but basically it's what is at risk. What did you spend during the year? That's how you determine $500,000. Single audit requirements must be conducted by an independent auditor. You have to follow the Yellow Book standards. And these, you know, it's the one part that's interesting is the schedule of expenditures of federal award. So now visualize the audit report for a moment. And it doesn't happen, unfortunately, for New Jersey because you have the audit report, and in the back for each program, federal program, you have a schedule of expenditures which shows how much you spent on that grant. And that's what that is. Auditor must obtain an understanding of internal controls. We talked